Welcome back to another video. Hit the OG YouTube intros. Okay, we're talking about every book I've read so far, and we're making a tier list. Thought it'd be a little bit of fun, and it would be a good way to kind of just recap some of these books. All right, so for the first book that we will be discussing, we're starting off with Dubliners. This was a book that I read for an Irish lit class. Dubliners, it has several very interesting stories, an encounter being one of them, A or B, but overall, some of the stories were a little bit disinteresting to me. It was a book that I thought was cool, wasn't moved by it, going B tier. All right, next up we got a book that I did an entire video on, so if you want to hear a lot more about this book, then go to that. Candide is a book about a man trying to fight pessimism and remain an optimist. He goes through a series of unfortunate events, and in the end, it's really about just the philosophies. A ton of things transpire. It's an interesting book. I liked it. It's going A tier, but it's like a weak A tier. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. This book just didn't resonate with me. I read it a couple of weeks ago. It's already a little bit blurry in my memory. It is a critique about Belgium's colonial rule over the Congo, and there are some interesting parts. It talks about the violence very plainly. It shows us how dark it was, but overall, it was a book that didn't really resonate with. Let's go into C tier. We have The Prince. Again, a book that is prescribing you advice on how to have ordinance, how to rule over a jurisdiction or a people, whatever it be. But overall, I think it's useful for everyone. Some very interesting insights. Some things, yes, they are obvious. They're quite on the nose. They're not going to change your life. But there's some interesting stories alongside of it. It's very short. I think it's completely worth it. It's going in top of B tier. Okay, this book is a little bit less known. It's by Perentino Jose, published by Deep Vellum, and it follows it's a series of short stories about the Zapotec people, and it incorporates Zapotec myth into these critiques of what's currently happening in Mexico. Overall, there are some amazing short stories in here that I do love and I think are fascinating, especially the birds. But I will say that a lot of it is incomprehensible, especially at least to me, who doesn't have any background in the Zapotec myth and can't really understand where the stories start, where the myths are, and how these two things are being intertwined. And so I failed to comprehend a large parts of it, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. It's going in A tier. God Has No Grandchildren is a collection of short stories by the Korean author, and there is a series of social critiques in this, from like work culture, just overall how society operates, the cause of certain violence. But there's some truly disturbing short stories in here, some really funny short stories in here, and overall it was very well written, to the point where a lot of my memories of what happened in this book were kind of confused with dreams at one point, where I thought I had dreamed certain things, but they were actually just things that had happened in the book. And that's how vivid some of that fantasia was while reading. I would put God Has No Grandchildren in S tier. Next up, we have The Visitor by Maeve Brennan. Again, Irish author. This is the only novel she ever published. The Visitor is a story about a young girl returning home after tragedy in her family to her grandmother's house. Our main protagonist and the grandmother do not get along, and there's quite a lot of conflict, and the book kind of follows that. It is a breakdown of that conflict, the issues, the sentiments, the loss. And overall, one of the most interesting questions that this book asks is, who has the right to the dead? Really good book, The Visitor by Maeve Brennan, putting it in low S tier. Now we have Mick McCormack's Solar Bones. This is a book that, is not a victim to the tyranny of plot. This is a book that plot is not the central focus. It is stream of consciousness with long descriptions, and it kind of has this ghostly ambiance. It's a little bit gothic. If you're sort of into that thing, I highly recommend it. I've read quite a few stream of consciousness books, and I think that when a novel is both stream of consciousness and it's also changing format, where they're not using punctuation properly, they're kind of not using paragraph breaks, and they're not having chapters, that can be quite jarring. That's not enough to write the book off. But overall, I just found a lot of the long-winded yaps a little bit uninteresting, especially towards the end. There was one really interesting one with the wind turbine and how it kind of felt like a crucifix for one of the characters over the city, as a symbol of salvation. Overall, really interesting book. On some aspects, on others, not so much. I would go C tier. Next up, we have, again, another collection of short stories, this time by an American author, by Barry Gifford, an author I knew nothing about, but turns out he's very prolific. He's written several novels. Cuban Club follows a young boy, Roy. So it's a short story, but it has a consistent theme, and that was something that was really refreshing. A collection of short stories that are not chronological, but that are all part of the same book. It's like if you took a book and then you mixed up the chapter. Barry Gifford writes from a child's perspective incredibly well. Roy's relationship with his mother is also incredibly interesting. There's some great writing, some really interesting settings that this book takes place in. With it being a collection of short stories, it really has the privilege of being able to jump around and not really having to explain some of the gaps, some of the time skips. It's great. I absolutely loved it. Going right there. Stoner by John Williams. I'm sure you've heard just about everything there is on the internet about this book. It follows a professor and his life, the disappointments. Overall, I absolutely love Stoner. I'm not here to give a unpopular opinion about this book. I do not have a hot take. Stoner to me is incredible. S tier. We have another NYRB. This one also very well spoken of. Hard Rain Falling. This, it follows a young delinquent. It takes you through his life, through the tragedy. It shows you glimpses of hope. It takes those away. It shows you other glimpses. This is a psychological deep dive into the mind of the character. It's heartbreaking, powerful. It takes you on the journey with the main character. You really are rooting for him to get better, but you have to read it to see where things go. Hard Rain Falling, I loved it. Incredible book. S tier. Fyodor Dostoevsky's White Nights. It's a story about unrequited love. A main character who falls in love with a woman who does not love him back. At least that's what it seems, and then the story takes a couple of turns and you see where you end up. To me, this is a warning against being a simp. It was good. It was nothing to write home about, but Fyodor Dostoevsky's White Nights, class. By Night in Chile by Roberto Bolaño. This is the first Bolaño I've ever read. I was so excited to read a Bolaño, and I have to say for large parts I was somewhat disappointed. The first 70 or 80 so pages of this book to me were a slug to get through. Again, stream of consciousness, but the character's not really talking about much in my opinion. He's a critic, he's a priest, it's all sort of a mess. But then you get to the point where he starts teaching Pinochet, the person who was in charge of the military regime in Chile, about communism. That's where the book picks up, and from that point on, it's incredible. The end of By Night in Chile to me carries all of the weight. So for that, it's going in A tier. Cien Años de Soledad. Now this is a book that I again do not really have to explain. This follows a family through generations. It is an epic tale in terms of what it covers. It briefly, very briefly mentions some political issues as well as social issues like the Banana Fruit Company. People always talk about how this book is a great example of magical realism, but the magical realism here is almost entirely about sex, how it affects family, specifically incest as well as pedophilia. It's a book that the way it's talked about to me is very confusing. I was really expecting something entirely different when I read this book, and in fact I was not a fan of it too much, and so this book is going in C tier. Osamu Dazai is No Longer Human is essentially about a character that feels so bad for himself that he ruins his life and the other people around him. It's a lot more into it than that. There's a lot to be talked about. Overall, it's really interesting. It's going S tier. Sit in Tango by Laszlo Krasznaorkai, Nobel Prize winner. I think it's great. It's a stream of consciousness novel. Again, it follows this small town in the middle of nowhere in Hungary, and it is simultaneously a critique of socialist, communist ideology and Christianity at the same time. Pretty interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought the introduction to the villains was one of the best I've ever read, and great book, highly recommend. S tier. Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This book, I'm not wasting your time. This book is utter garbage. Some of the worst writing and dialogue I've ever read. Next up, Foster by Claire Keegan. Love Claire Keegan. I've read Small Things Like These. This is not as good. It still carries on Keegan's incredible ability to write somebody's thoughts, but overall it's a story that's just less impactful. I thought it was good, but it's nothing crazy. Foster by Claire Keegan. Next up, I have A City and Its Uncertain Walls by Haruki Murakami. This is a book that I think I would have enjoyed a lot more if I had read Hard Egg Wonderland Boiled at the End of the World, something like that. This book is the alternate ending to. Having not read that book, there's a lot that I did not understand, but overall Murakami's novels are such a dreamlike escape that it's hard not to enjoy them. This book was absolutely mesmerizing. From the moment you pick up the page, you're just transported into the world. It is a page turner. It is incredibly interesting. It still asks some questions. You have a main character, again, a normal guy. I loved it. With all of its shortcomings, I still loved it. I'm still trying to figure out what the shadow is, so if you know, please let me know. This is going high A tier. Flights by Olga Tokarczuk. This is again a collection of short stories by the Polish author. Flights started off incredibly strong. It is essentially a collection under the theme of all these different forms that people run away from something. There is some incredible insight into some of these stories, but overall I felt like the book started off very strong. The original few essays and stories about vacation and how people have a weird relationship with travel, I thought those were fantastic. As the book kind of progressed, to me it became a little bit more dull and a little bit more repetitive and a little bit more tiresome to get through the book, but overall it was still good, but I definitely think it went on for too long. I am going B tier for Flights by Olga Tarkuzov. No, actually, I'm going C. We have Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho. I absolutely detested this book. As somebody who's into fashion, you would have thought that the long-winded descriptions of every single time they were wearing Valentino would have interested somebody. It would have been me, but it did not. This book was so boring. Going to D tier. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I just made an entire review about this book, so if you want to hear it, go check out it on my channel. It's going in B tier. It's going above Foster. Is The Memoirs of Hadrian. It's a fiction that should have been a nonfiction. It really struggles in its format. It is simultaneously a memoir and a letter to Marcus Aurelius, and that really made it awkward. Yusunar had done an incredible amount of research for this book, but unfortunately I think that the form that the book was written in just wasn't that interesting. I'm going C tier for Memoirs of Hadrian. And that is all of the books I've read so far this year. I am definitely going to do another one of these at the end of the year. Thank you so much for watching, and check out to see what other videos I have on my channel. There's a lot of these books have been talked about, and just a range of different topics as well. See ya.